Um, I wanted to ask about the Lords of Karma and who are obviously responsible for dishing out our fates if we decide to stay only in creation. I was wondering about these characters, and I was wondering if these individuals sort of if like any other position in life they chose this role, and I was wondering if they are also trapped in creation as well with a limited state of awareness. I'm sort of wondering how somebody would even end up being in a position as a lord of karma. What sort of life choices or sort of like projections into the future result in them being in such a position, and also would they possibly also be subject to cause and effect karma?
Yes, to all the above, young man. And the idea here is that, again, just look at it. In creation, it's the old saying, so below, so above. And so again, the lords of karma are simply a reflection. So you look at the Supreme Court as an example. You look at Parliament, where you kids are, all those knuckleheads. And so the thing is, how did they get there? You might say they worked their way there. They dreamed their way there. They decided to be part of that, part of the established system. This is how the deceptors set things up. They set up these ideas, and then they make these so-called positions available to people. They entice them. It's like, oh, you could do this, and you could make this much money, and you'd have a good living, and at the same time, nobody could bother you. You could be like above the law, where everybody else has to obey the law. So now they have to stop at the red lights, and you're part of Parliament or the Supreme Court or whatever, and you can run through the red lights. Okay, it's fine, and you won't get a ticket. You have diplomatic immunity, etc. So, and the Lords of Karma are the same. They're very limited, very subject to everything in creation, the Kalam God, everything. It's all subject to cause and effect creation because they're still in creation. So you might say they've earned their way. They've decided to have that position. And for most people, like politics, you look at politics around the world, it would seem like, oh, these people want to help somebody, but they get caught up in the system. The system's already set up to where it manipulates the masses for their support. That's the bottom line. That's it. They're not interested in anything else because they're too afraid to be real and make sense of things. So they're going to stick to the old ways of controlling others. But they've worked their way there. That's how they got there. And the Kalam God, how do you think he got to be God? He's a conqueror. Just like you see in the movies, Genghis Khan or whatever, or, Hitler tried it too, but etc. These are conquerors, and they're in other realms, etc. Just like the reptilians, they came, they conquered the earth, they invaded it, they created this nonsense. And so we've agreed for lifetimes, which is okay, because we're at that point where we recognize what's going on. So yes, they're all subject to it too, even more so, and they have the chance. They see what is being presented here. They see what I'm doing here, but at the same time, they can't figure it out. That's the whole thing. It's just they're looking, and it's like, according to how they view things, taking over and having their so-called control, which actually they're really the slave. They're really the slaves to the people that they've made slaves. They see it works both ways. They don't have control over others. They're the slave to people because they still got to maintain them. Anything you create in creation, you have to maintain, and they have to maintain the people. Otherwise, they don't have any food supply. So they're like, cowboys herding cattle. They're just herding the cattle around, and when they're ready, they take them to market because this planet is human farming, is what it is. But now that you have the awareness, okay, they can have the body eventually. Let them have the body, And most people are very attached to their body and the ideas of it. This is what brings them back. So you come into a new body because you want to keep chasing these ideas. But it's okay. Let them have the body because that's all they have. They cannot touch your real awareness. So yes, they're subject to it all, even more so. And the decisions that they make, the judges, the Supreme Court, the police, whatever, Many times those are personal judgments, and they got to deal with that. They take on that karma too, just like a healer. Any of these healers, etc. They take on the karma. They got to deal with it. It looks good for a while. They make the judgment and say, oh, you're going to jail or whatever. But if they know the fella's innocent, they take on that sentence and that karma for future lifetimes because they made that judgment. They wanted that position to make that judgment. They got to deal with it. So, creation is very interesting. It's not what you thought it was and what your mommy and daddy told you, right?
Okay. Yes, thank you for that. Following on from that, that same question. So, if they were taking on karma as a result of the judgment they're dishing out to people, then that would mean there's a possibility they might find themselves no longer in that position, and possibly in future lifetimes they would have a different role. And so, in theory, somebody else would come in and assume that role of a lord of karma. Or could there be a situation where there might be nobody in that position at all, and then they wouldn't have that control structure in place? So when people do pass over, there will be nobody dishing out cause and effect repercussions and sort of dictating where people go next, and the whole thing would be in absolute chaos, in theory.
Well, that's a theory, but realistically, no matter what a person does here, it's automatically cause and effect. And so you don't need the police or judges to say, okay, you're going to jail for 10 years because you robbed this person's house over here. It's all automatic. And it goes from lifetimes to lifetime automatically according to, what the person decides all the time. So it's going to show up. But many times it shows up in future lifetimes because most people already have so much karma that they're just trying to get through their situations in this lifetime, so it pushes into future lifetimes, and all of a sudden they're robbed of their house or whatever, and they wonder why, because all of a sudden they're the nicest person on the street, and it's like, why me? I'm the nicest person. But they don't see what took place lifetimes ago. So when these people pass their judgments or whatever, and I'm not saying with all their judgments, because again, they've taken a position of responsibility. And it's just like, I was a contractor, I have a contracting business. And so, when I made an agreement to do a job, yes, I went out there and did it the best that I could, and the job came out fine. But if I made an agreement to do the job and then I just took the down payment and never went back, well, then again, that's a debt that I have. I've incurred that debt. And so if I keep doing that, I'm going to incur a lot more debts, and that's going to add up. I can still take care of it this lifetime, but it probably go in the future lifetime. So yeah, those people, like you're seeing, the politicians and all the funny things they're doing, the presidents and whatever that are all crooked, they're not going to come back as into the monarchy anymore. They're going to go into certain body types that they have to deal with because of the situations they've created. So all of a sudden they may come into body types where they're part of a slave trade and they're one of the slaves that's been kidnapped and traded. Now they see it from a different angle because of what they've done to others. So, it's really kind of a mishmash, and this is how it is in creation. And the real guides, they're not concerned about this. Most people are just going through their experiences. And it's kind of like picking the ripe fruit. They go through creation and they're able to see, for the most part, because it's all free will, those individuals that are ready to step up for this. This is why there's not that many here on the Skypes and that have stepped up with the new presentation, because it's not like how things used to be. You look at the corporation and anything out there, you look at Scientology or the corporation or anything out there, these spiritual paths, Buddhism or whatever, they've got up to millions of members. You see, they've got millions of agreeable followers. And why is that? Because those are passive systems where people want to be babysat and taken care of. This is a real position where, no, you got to step up and figure it out and learn to stand real. That's what the new presentation is about. And so that's why there's very few here, because even on the real side, these people see that, no, that's way too much, you see. So again, it's kind of like people running for president. A lot of people want to do it, but how many people will actually do it, you see? Usually less than 100 out of the 300 or 400 million that there are. So, you know, this is why our numbers are smaller, because this is a bigger step. So again, you know, things are going to go along the lines of what people have chosen. And for the most part, because of how the personal self decides, is allowed to decide from the real awareness, well, it puts itself in situations that it doesn't see are coming up, and all of a sudden it's there and it doesn't know where it is. And especially when it goes to the other side, this was why I asked Sandy and Claudie to be witnesses. I can say anything, of course, and to be witnesses to Marjorie Klemp passing over. She was the so-called great higher initiate of the corporation. Well, she went with the reptilians. And the people in the corporation still don't get this. It's like, how can that be? You know, she was very special here. Well, you know, like the presidents, she looked really good. But it's really the intent and what's really going on with the individual and a whole lot more. Well, no, she made a deal with the reptilians, with Joni. She made a deal to keep her mouth shut about the control and the takeover of the corporation. She could have stepped up, but she decided to go along with it because she wanted to be personally taken care of. Well, you know, she'll be personally taken care of by the reptilians for a lot of lifetimes, and it'll be her choice. So again, it all comes around no matter what's decided. So the world is very fortunate that we are here and this reality is here, but each person must decide it for themselves. That becomes their adventure. But yes, you're seeing cause and effect in action, and there doesn't need to be any more karma or reincarnation with anyone once they step up wholeheartedly and sincerely and they focus on what's real, and then let that be their reality and make sense of things, and then all this other nonsense diminishes. You don't need it. You don't have to go through it anymore.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah, that prompted another question actually. I mean, the established number of people on the Earth is 7 billion, and I was just wondering if you could confirm if that is actually true, because there are people sort of speculating that because of the depopulation agenda that's been in effect for the last how many years, 20, 30, 40, 50 years it's been, with all the millions of deaths worldwide, the sort of like the infertility rate, there's like 50 million people dying of starvation a year. I think there's going to be 80 million people will be dead in Yemen by the end of this year. A lot of the countries are reporting diminishing population rates, and they have been reporting this for the last 20 years or so. And also with the huge explosion in autism and those sort of conditions, it results in a lot of those people not having the inclination to start families and such. And obviously with the extreme poverty as well, people are also less inclined to consider starting families too, because of the cost of doing so. And a lot of people are suggesting the actual population figures that we've been told are actually very inaccurate, and in fact they are closer to the 1 billion mark, which is getting nearer to the controller's goal of, I think it was 500,000 on the guides to stones, I think it was. So I was wondering if you could, if you knew or could confirm the sort of population of the Earth.
That's a lot to figure out, and it's a lot more than you're suggesting. And also, I would have to use probably almost 100% of my brain to figure that out. And so, because I'm only using about 10 or 9.5% right now, because I'm pretty much indifferent to it. I think it's more like 3%. But anyhow, but I know I have a guess that someone that could answer that, and that would be Val.
Oh yes, well, my brain too is like near the low end there, but yeah, that the figures are they bounce those things around, and according to their whatever they want to you to think and what their agenda is. So it's really hard to say that. Who's to say? And who cares really? I mean, it's just for the benefit of their whatever their marketing is. So I don't know that either. You'd have to take a census. Maybe you could start a census, a poll on Facebook. Start it yourself. That's what we always suggest. If you have a question or something you wonder about, you can just start something yourself and get that going. There's what is there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us here in this household. So to start.
That we can see.
That we can see. Okay. Are you talking about physical bodies or semi-physical?
Claudia's on the phone.
Okay, Claudia's here too. It's 6. To start.
May I say something?
Of course.
The population decline is in accordance to their agenda to reduce the use of the resources of this planet. And one of the resources of this planet is the 8 billion people that live here. So if we have that many people on this planet supported by the plants and animals here, and this population keeps increasing, it's going to put a strain on all of the resources for the present amount of people here. So we'll say that the people who are running the planet, and I refer to the extraterrestrials who are running the planet, not the people that are standing in front of you saying they're running the planet. They're being told by the extraterrestrials to do certain things, whether they like it or not. So here is an opportunity to look at this big picture and see what's going on. The population of China alone is, I think, 1.6 billion. The population of the United States, I think, is 300 million. One-third of the population of China could disappear, and they would still have more people feed and house with a tremendous amount of impact on the planet. So if you look at it from just the numbers alone, you see what's taking place, and you notice things. The whole thing is to notice what's going on around you in your everyday life. Whether you're looking at what's going on in Parliament, or what's going on in Russia, or India, or South America, or the North or South Pole, everything is moving along a railroad track, going somewhere. And people are on board a train. If you are bored of this planet, you can't really get off until you decide to leave it, or plan to leave it, whichever way, whatever happens. In the meantime, you have to feed, clothe, shelter yourself and your family or loved ones in some manner. You do it the best you can. Duane is always saying, you're surviving. This is what you do as a human on this planet. This planet at the present moment is being destroyed by people who do not have the agenda, your best interest as their agenda. So as you notice things, you become aware of what's going on, then you can make a better choice. You can choose the thing that you, and see what happens at night in your dream state. You try to figure out a better solution. The guides are here to help you. All you have to do is ask. They will help you. It's a simple thing, and sometimes they help you in a way where you say, oh, I don't like that. Well, that was the best they could do at the moment, because that's as far as you are aware. whole purpose here is to become aware of the all in our everyday life. Every moment, every second. Like was just mentioned, less is more. Into your little brain and make room for the all is awareness. It's a better life than what you have at the moment. But it takes courage to step up and do that. If it was all so easy, everybody on the planet would be doing it. There's only a few here, the United Kingdom, that have come to check out what's being offered as information so that they can make a better choice. And I salute you, and I thank you very much for the choices you have made. I have learned so much in your Skype. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Claudia. Just one more thing.
If I
Go ahead.
may. Okay, thank you. So I understand that the question was about the number of men living actually on the planet at the moment, or it started with that. So how I see that at least, let's say 75-85% of the biological, let's say, humans walking around, they are not really humans. They are different entities who stepped into the human bodies, into those biological suits. So if it's 75-85%, it leaves not 7 billion, but let's say 1 billion actual humans with the human soul, quote unquote. Maybe it is that when they wrote, or what they wrote on those Georgia stones, because that was which Kevin referred to. Was it Kevin? Then they are maybe talking about real humans, kind of. So it seems that when we expect people to recognize what we are presenting, it makes it is kind of difficult for them because it is not their natural awareness, human kind of awareness, and the moment we are in at this point where we have that opportunity. So maybe that's why most of those 7 billion cannot understand what we are referring to, or are literally, even if they want, they are literally not able to figure it out, because they just forcefully or deceptively step into those biological suits, and it is not on their kind of natural menu to wake up. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
And about population, look at sometimes I see these birds like crows, like hundreds of crows flying in the air and landing, or hundreds of pigeons or other kinds of birds. They just mass, they have a big party or going someplace, doing something, and then they just disappear. Like where do they stay at night, or what happens to them? They all congregate and then they disappear. You never really see where they sleep or anything. So this is like they're with the natural environment. They're with nature and they get it. So they're working with it. They're not setting up camps and, you know, destroying things and doing littering and all that stuff. They just blend in very nicely, but yet they get together sometimes in, you know, big populations, but they can handle it. They know how to work with it, and then go their own way and just blend in again. So it's kind of interesting. Whereas humans are, when they get together, it's a big mess. Like out here on the beach when we have events, it's a big mess. Clean up afterwards. So thanks, Kevin.
Okay, thank you. That was very interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've come to the end of my questions for this week. So unless anybody else wishes to share anything else or any experiences or anything, then that will be about it. And all I can say is watch out for those new dewy blobs.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, about 2 hours is plenty because we'll be doing it again. Thank you.